Much. Just one sec. I want to make sure that I am sharing this right. Good to see you all. Again, my name is Andy Maidlow, and I am with a DDS provider agency in Hamilton County. We are Community Supports Incorporated, and we have been around providing supported living for folks living in Hamilton County, which is the Cincinnati area, for 25 years. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary. And I myself have been a part of community supports for the past 10 years. I am going to present to you guys today a little bit of the information that we presented at the Trauma Informed Care Conference that the Ohio Children's Alliance put on a couple of weeks back. That presentation was 90 minutes, and this presentation is a little bit less. So you're going to get a little bit of an accelerated version, but I'm really, really excited to be here today. This is my first Project ECHO experience, so I am thrilled for the invitation. And I hope that you guys find this information of use. And feel free afterwards to reach out to me with any questions you may have after the session is over. And I'd be happy to respond to emails or anything like that as well. We are going to dive in a little bit with regards to a tool that we utilize called the Felt Safety Manual, which is a tool and a part of a larger training that we provide specifically to intended and targeted at direct support professionals, DSPs, for folks in our developmental disability world, as well as anyone else, all the way up to administrators. But it really is focused on what we call practical application of the neuroscience-based interventions that we provide for individuals who've experienced complex trauma. So that's really what our presentation is about today. And again, I can't keep up with slides, so I already talked about myself. You don't want to hear about me again. Again, my name is Andy, and I'm with Community Supports. We're strictly supported living, so we do not provide licensed group home services or ICFDD. We're strictly providing staffing for the individual that we support throughout Hamilton County. And that's who we are, Community Supports. So when we talk about our learning for the day, we always encourage staff whenever or anyone who's going to be in a learning environment to what we call lean in with curiosity, right? When our brains are engaged, when we are curious about our learning and wondering, hey, what if some of this information I learned today was practically applied to somebody that I work with, somebody that I support, rather than giving it a hard yes, yes, I love this, or no, I'm not interested in this. Just being curious and leaning in with curiosity is going to help engage our cortex, our thinking brain, and allow us to be creative together and cooperative. So an introduction to what we call our Felt Safety Manual.
I'm not sure if it's just me, but Andy, I think we might have lost you.
It's not just you.
Okay.
And maybe he could, oh, there he's gone, I think.
Okay. Oh, and
he's back. He's back. He's back.
Can you hear me now?
We
Okay.
can. And Andy, if you wanted to take your camera off, if you're getting any messages about a low bandwidth and everything, by all means, go ahead and do that.
I was on Zoom all morning, and this is, of course, the first time that happens. So I apologize. Okay, can you see my slideshow still? Okay. I'm going to keep plugging away. And I will turn off my camera just in case. It's being a little finicky. Okay, I apologize for that.
We lost the slides.
But do you still see me?
We see your name, yes.
Oh, yay. Okay.
We can still hear you.
Okay. I apologize. I'm not sure what's going on. Let me pull up my PowerPoint again. So essentially, I'm going to talk as I do this. We teach staff the importance of felt safety and the difference between felt safety and actual safety. Here we go. What is happening? Okay. I really apologize. This is just too. Can you see my slides changing?
Yes, it's just not in presenter view.
Okay.
There we go.
Yay, apologies. Okay, you don't need to see my face anyway. Okay, so we talk about the importance between felt safety and actual safety. We talk about something that we can do immediately in the here and now, and it's called safe language. So shifting from evaluative terms like good and bad, appropriate and inappropriate, healthy and unhealthy, to safe and unsafe can be calming and regulating for an individual, especially someone who receives supports from multiple staff. And people's opinions of what may be safe or unsafe vary from, good or bad may vary from person to person. And so I don't need to adapt behavior around an expectation of another person. I need to adapt my behavior towards what is safe and unsafe. And that is allowing us to get that attention of that fear center and keep our thinking brain online. We teach an adaptive version of Dan Siegel's hand brain as a way of establishing a sense of how our central nervous system works and how we can engage and target the interventions in our felt safety manual with regards to if our cortex is online, our thinking brain is online, or if our fear center is driving our actions. And I know there's a lot of folks online today. So if you're not familiar with this hand brain model, it is really an extensive training that we do, and it's really a cornerstone of helping all of us who are not scientists, who got a D in chemistry like I did in high school, be able to wrap our head and brain around all the neuroscience that goes into how our central nervous system perceives information and whether or not our brain is saying we're safe or unsafe. And it just gives it a practical approach of a way of us understanding that. So when we talk about our vagus nerve, which is that nerve that wraps around every organ in our body, actually allows us to feel our feelings in our body. We don't experience our feelings up here in our brain. We experience them throughout our body. And that information, when it comes into our brain, goes into our brain stem. Our brain stem is in charge of all the things that we don't want to have to think about, like breathing, digestion, staying awake and alert and things like that. Our brainstem is actually in charge of that. The need to use restroom, hunger, all of that is operated by our brainstem. It also takes that information that's coming into us from the outside world and presents it to our limbic system instantaneously. Our limbic system is also referred to as our fear center, represented by the thumb in our hand brain. It's in charge of that felt safety that we talked about a minute ago. Being able to feel safe. If we feel safe, then we're able to attach and work with other people. If we're able to attach and work with other people, we're also able to stay regulated if we feel safe, which is the ability to feel calm, cool, and collected in our environment and in our body. So that limbic system, it takes that information from our brainstem and decides, hey, is this information that I'm receiving from my four senses safe or unsafe? And if it can't decide, it's going to default to unsafe. And if we're feeling unsafe, then our cortex, or our thinking brain, the part of our brain that makes us, represented by the four fingers in our hand brain model, actually goes offline when we don't feel safe. And we're not able to think creatively and cooperatively with other people. We're not able to articulate words and have what we call spontaneous speech, which is the ability for us to engage and talk and communicate with other people. All of that actually goes offline, and our fear center, our brainstem, is in control. And that will often lead us to do unsafe actions because we feel like we need to do those actions in order for us to feel safe again. What we want to do is target some interventions in our felt safety manual that are intended to keep our cortex online in scenarios and situations where in the past they have traditionally led to unsafe actions or being offline. We also have some targeted interventions that are intended to get that cortex or thinking brain back online when we're being unsafe, when individuals we support are being unsafe, because that is our ultimate goal, is for that engagement and that cortex to be working for us so that we can be safe and creative and get our thinking brains back online. One thing that we teach can't happen is when people are feeling unsafe and their cortex is going offline, is engage with people verbally, like use your words, right? We'd say that phrase often with kiddos that are not feeling safe or are being unruly, right? And we actually can't do that because we're not able to articulate how we're feeling. We're feeling our feelings in our body and not in that cortex. So use your words is not an effective intervention for someone who's completely feeling unsafe and going offline. Allowing people to get back online before we can engage in that is important. And that's a hand-brain model. And that's something that we really use as a cornerstone of learning for a lot of our trainings. What we learn is that our goal ultimately is to increase resilience. When we increase resilience and help people feel safe, then we're helping with their frustration tolerance and knowing what to do while we're waiting and knowing what we can do before returning to a preferred activity actually will decrease restrictions. So the more we can build resilience for folks and safety for folks, the less restrictions that we need to apply for them as far as staffing patterns or anything that may be locked or controlled substances or anything like that. Can actually decrease as we increase resilience. And that is something that we definitely teach in our training model. Our hand brain was interlaced with what we call our fear cascade, which is our Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory that is adapted to us to help our staff know how people are when they're feeling what their brain is telling them to do. So our biggest human need is obviously connection. So even if the introverts in the world out there are need to have a sense of community or to be a part of a community, because our brains think, hey, we're living 10,000 years ago, right? And when we were living 10,000 years ago, when we were not a part of the group, a part of the tribe, and we were ostracized, we were basically dead. So our biggest human need is to flock or to be a part of a community. We have all these F's in the fear cascade to help us sort of as a learning tool, a mnemonic device. But our flock is our greatest human need. So if we can't safely flock with a group of people, we will resort to an unsafe flock, right? And so this is how gangs exist. This is why, you know, when your kids rolling with the wrong crowd, whatever you may want to call it, is actually an unsafe flock. Because if we can't safely connect with people, we'll do it in unsafe ways. When we begin to go offline and to feel unsafe and that brainstem is saying, hey, I'm not feeling super safe right now, our initial instinct is to flee a situation. So if we can't safely flee, we will unsafely flee. Again, that is below our thinking brain. So when we get that urge in our body to flee, we need to work on interventions to help people safely flee when they get that urge rather than to unsafely flee. If we can't flee a situation, then we will fight our way out of it. And that is where our brain is beginning to feel really unsafe and we're not able to escape a situation. So an unsafe fight looks like maybe physical aggression, or it looks like really unsafe actions towards other people physically. There is a safe alternative to that, and that is some burning off some of that energy that we get when we get that urge to fight. So physical activity and things like that can be put onto the safe side of that fear cascade when our bodies feel that urge to burn off that energy. If we can't fight, then we will freeze. That looks like oppositional defiant. That looks like not engaging a type of behavior when it's unsafe. The safe side of that freeze is where our brain needs to go to be able to safely concentrate and engage in a school or a learning environment, right? So that is that safe side of that fear cascade. If we're not able to, if we're even below freeze, we fall into what we call a faint or submit. And that is where we are submitting to the most powerful person in that room. Our brains are actually preparing for us to die. Our downstairs brain is thinking, this is inescapable. And if we're going to die, let's do it in the least painful way possible. And that is through a faint submit. The safe side of that fear cascade. A safe submit is actually where our brains need to go to be able to feel safe enough to fall asleep at night, right? So that is that safe side of a faint submit. Now, often what we see when we are a provider agency is that our goal is to have folks here in that safe flock with their staff. But sometimes when we power over or force an individual to submit, we see that they go into that unsafe submit. And then as soon as their brains start to feel safe enough, they start to progress back up that fear cascade. So a lot of times you'll have a staff person working with an individual that says, hey, they're great with me, but they're actually submitting to that staff out of a fear. And once another safe staff person arrives, they come up fighting or fleeing. And so that we call that the fight, flee, submit cycle, which is something that we try to avoid as a provider agency. We have a worksheet that we utilize. That artwork is sort of is helpful for us to visualize, but we actually have a worksheet here where we can define and create a fear cascade for individuals that we support. So what does the unsafe actions look like on each one of those levels and compared to a safe option? And we want to, when we feel that urge to fight or flee, provide safe options for individuals on that worksheet. So that's a tool that we utilize. Diving into what our felt safety manual is, and this is actually my last slide because I wanted to give a quick synopsis of what these tools are and how they interplay. So this is sort of a roadmap or a model of representation of the most commonly used interventions that we create and a trauma responsive plan for the folks that we support. And it shows how they're interconnected with each other. So all interventions and supports that we provide are within the context of establishing felt safety. We establish felt safety by creating a safety script. So that is sort of our umbrella of tools that we can provide folks. That safety script is like what we call a safety sandwich. We say things like, hey, that's fine. It's something that is an unsafe action for an individual and name that this is a safe place. I'm not going to let anyone hit you. So I can't let you hit anyone else because this is our safe place. Safety sandwich, establishing safety on either end. These can obviously be augmented and changed for specific environments. We can modify safety scripts. If it's not a safe place, we don't want to say it's a safe place. So we may say, we want this to be a safe place. And we can help establish a sense of safety if we don't hit each other because this is a safe place. Now I'm losing my voice. Sorry. Other interventions at the bottom are identified by our liftoff and landing. Hold on, let me get a drink. Okay, I'm like falling apart all of a sudden. All right, so we have our liftoff and landing, which is a tool that we use for a couple of different things. Number one, we establish what upregulates an individual. That is our liftoff. Sometimes you'll see this referred to as a roots and wings. So it works interchangeably. But wings or a liftoff are activities that bring us joy, that upregulate us, that give us energy. Landings or roots, depending on your tool, are things that you can do and engage in and enjoy that help down-regulate you. So what we want to do is find preferred activities that upregulate and preferred activities that downregulate. We always do these tools together. So we don't slap a liftoff and landing in front of an individual and say, go to town. We always do it together. That establishes that connection, that safe connection and power width that we're looking for. It also helps us find commonalities between staff and individual. If if the individual likes to go to the gym and work out and the staff names that too, well, they have that commonality where we're able to actually have something that is allowing us to establish a sense of felt safety because we have something in common. That leads us to a person in a mandala. So when we're engaging in an activity from our liftoff, it's important to be cognizant about, hey, how do we feel when we're engaging in that activity? Our society doesn't talk about feelings. We just don't talk about feelings. So we have to think about that. When I am engaging, I go to the gym and I'm done working out. How do I feel when I'm finished? Can I give that feeling a shape, size, color, temperature, and show where I am actually feeling that? So to me, it's like a light blue chest and shoulder feeling, and we're going to name that feeling. because what we want to do is get more of that, right? So how can we identify ways to get more of that feeling safely? That progresses beyond into what we call our anger volcano, which that safe feeling goes down to that right side of that volcano, which gives you all of those good feeling hormones and endorphins and things like that once you engage in that. And the top of our volcano is actually identifying how we feel right before we engage in an unsafe action with somebody else or for ourselves. Hey, how did you feel right in that moment? Now, after the fact, we're going to have that discussion right when our cortex is back online. But what can we identify, give it a shape, size, and color when we blew our top and became completely unsafe? And then our goal of our anger volcano is to slow that process down of escalation. So when we begin to start to feel unsafe, how can we identify that feeling and what can we do to cross over to get to that safe side of that anger volcano and get that good feeling again without escalating? Sometimes we use some of these activities from our liftoff and landing of, hey, when I'm starting to feel unsafe, what is something I can do to cross over and get back to that safe side before I escalate any further? What are some safe alternatives to that? And then the other two critical tools that we utilize, again, predict, practice, and plan B. Very simple tool for our staff and for all of us to utilize. Once you start 3Ping people, you can't turn it off. I am doing 3Ps with myself and my brain all the time. It's just a tool that becomes a part of you. You predict what you want to have happen, what you think will happen. You practice literally step by step every action, right? So when this is an activity that may traditionally throw somebody offline, a doctor's appointment, a dentist appointment, right? What would you like to have happen? I'd like to go to the dentist, get my teeth cleaned, say you have no cavities. Great. What do you think will happen? Well, not sure. Maybe I'll have maybe they'll scrape, maybe I'll have a cavity, maybe I won't, right? So let's practice that. We're going to get up in the morning. We're going to have breakfast. We're going to brush our teeth. Let's do, who's going to be your staff person? What car are we going to drive? When we get to the doctor's office, what are the sights, sounds, and smells, right? They're putting it back to all of the senses that you're going to experience when you get to a doctor's office that may traditionally throw us offline, right? You hear that, the weird sound. A doctor or a dentist's office smells weird, right? Thinking of, and getting that brain in the context of when that scent hits you, then you're prepared for it. And then plan B is what happens when things go sideways. What happens when the dentist is behind and you can't get there? We can't get back there quick enough to be seen. We can do this with safe and preferred activities too. Took a kiddo to a Reds game not too long ago, and that Reds game was something that they had talked about for about 6 months. Well, we're going to predict what we want to have happen at that Reds game. It's going to be a beautiful day. We're going to have hot dogs. We're going to have candy. We're going to have pop. We're going to have great seats. Let's practice what it's going to be like step by step and then throw in some plan B. So we're going to get there. Where are we going to park? Where are our seats? How are we going to navigate the stadium? And then a plan B is what the heck happens when it rains out and there's no game? Because traditionally that has led to very unsafe actions in the past. Well, the plan B may be we're going to go to the movie theater instead. And then we're going to rain check that game and go back the next week, right? And then our final intervention that we utilize is something we call reflect, honor, connect, which is when somebody's cortex is offline and they're having big feelings or unsafe feelings, reflecting back that feeling that they're explaining to us. We're not going to guess at their feelings. We're going to identify their feelings based on what they're telling us. We're going to honor them by thanking them for sharing or having the courage to let them know that they're having a big feeling, and then connecting them back to safety. You're having a really big feeling today. Thank you for letting me know. I'm wondering what we can do together to help us feel safe in this moment. And that's a reflect, honor, connect. These are the most commonly used tools. So that's kind of our roadmap. When we get into what we call our resilience-based de-escalation training, which is a one-day training that's focused on this felt safety manual, we really dissect and dive into each one of these interventions and practice them robustly, first for ourselves and then for the individuals that we support. And I'm not going to go any deeper. How does this land? I know I'm already up at 12 o'clock, so I apologize for running over. But I wanted to make sure that I got all that information to you.
Thanks, Andy. That was great. And we do have a couple of minutes if you want to keep going a little bit on the same topic, and then we can see if there's any questions. and then we can start our presentation a little
Yeah, I'm
bit.
so, I actually have to jump off by 12:05. I
Ah,
apologize.
Okay, yeah, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. We would,
Okay.
that's fine. We'll wrap up by 12:05.
Great. Yeah. So if there's any questions, then maybe people can just add those now, and I can always reference some of the future slides if we need to.